And if we walk away from this and haven't learned these 5 lessons, then basically we are going to be doomed to repeat ourselves in the future, and nobody wants that. What's up everyone, David here with Free to Be, and in today's video I'm going to be covering 5 lessons to take away from this whole coronavirus situation so that we're not blindsided by this again. And these are all going to be important because if you do not pay attention to these, we are inevitably going to be doomed to repeat these same mistakes in the future when we end up running into a similar situation. Now, as always, if you're new to the channel, please take a moment and click the subscribe button down below. I cover financial literacy on this channel while documenting my journey to financial independence. And hopefully by doing so, I create a blueprint for others to use. So if you're new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. It is free to do that. And if you're not new, thanks again for joining me this week. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting from family and friends and from everyone out there on YouTube. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so what are these money lessons to take away from coronavirus, from the situation that we've been put in over the past few months that'll help us avoid being blindsided in the future? Well, the first thing to do here is to remember that we should always be looking to protect our income. And what I mean here is you have enough of a strategy in place just in case you come across the scenario that, could be your worst case scenario. You might fall ill, you might lose your job, you might be in a situation where you don't have income any longer. And you have to make sure that you protect that income, in a myriad of different ways. Now, whether that's building multiple streams of income, putting money aside where you can kind of get passive income coming in, whatever that is for you, you have to look into those opportunities so that your income doesn't dry up when you're faced with a situation that, most likely most of us will be faced at some point in our lives. And, it could happen at any point. It doesn't necessarily need to be during a pandemic. God forbid, you could get sick at any point in your career, which could cost you your job. And then what's going to happen there? You have to be planning for these things accordingly so that you're never faced with a loss of income. Or at least if that does occur, you're able to recover a lot faster. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do, which kind of goes in line with the first thing, is to keep hoarding on your emergency fund. Keep saving, keep adding money to that fund. You can never have enough in an emergency fund. So even if it ends up being $2 a day that you put aside in this fund, that's an extra $60 a month. Over a course of a year, that's going to be an extra, few $100s just by saving a couple dollars a day. So make sure you continue to hoard and put money away in that fund. If you can put a lot more, great. But don't ever neglect it. Don't live like, I have a period of time in my life, a 6-month period, 8-month period, everything's going smoothly, and I just completely forget about the rainy day situation. You don't want to be in that boat, so make sure you are consistently saving and putting money away aside in that emergency fund for the unexpected scenario that, is going to happen again. Because there's nothing worse than a scenario coming into play as fast as like this one did. Within a couple months, people were losing their jobs. 20, 30 million Americans have lost their jobs. And a lot of those folks don't have that emergency fund. You don't want to be put in that position because it's not a really fun position to be, because on top of everything else that's going on, you are going to be extremely stressed. And stress doesn't really equate to good health. And that's just going to compound all the problems that you're already faced with. Now, the third lesson to learn here is, unfortunately, life is fragile and we don't know what's going to happen here. It's fleeting. You're here one day, you're gone. We all have a ticket. We all have an expiration date on us, and we don't really know when that is. And what that means is basically planning for the ones that you leave behind, your loved ones, your family members. If you have kids, your wife, you want to make sure that you can put away as much as you can for them, sure, but you also want to have insurance policies in place that'll actually leave them with a large sum of money. So, you can get $1 million package for as little as like a couple dollars a day. Look into those different types of, insurance policies and make sure you're setting up your family, in case something does happen, which eventually it will happen, but you don't want it to pop up and you hadn't given it any thought. So look into a life insurance policy. Just make sure that you're planning for your family's future, for the loved ones that you're going to be leaving behind. And most likely, if you have an employer, your employer does have policies in place for you with minimums that are guaranteed to your family or your beneficiary. and you can go ahead and up it through them. So, look into your employer and the different benefits that you have through them as well. If you're still employed, look at those benefits. If not, there are, ways to go and get life insurance policies outside of an employer. So whatever works for you, just make sure you're planning for it, because again, you don't want to be blindsided, by untimely demise, and you haven't really set up the ones that you love. Now, the fourth lesson to take away from this is not to neglect your debt. Specifically, I'm talking about student loans. Now, while the government has recently passed a bill that will push out payments on federal student loans through the end of September, that doesn't mean you're off the hook for any private loans that you might have. And while those lenders may be willing to work with you and push out your payments 30, 60 days, that doesn't mean that the interest won't continue to accrue on those. That's, same thing goes with credit cards. Don't neglect those debts right now, because what's going to end up happening is if you decide that you're going to forego on paying on those, the interest is just going to accumulate and you're going to be in a way worse financial position, 3 months, 6 months down the road. So don't neglect those payments. Make any payments that you can, work with them, see if you can refinance those loans onto a lesser interest rate, and just try to get ahead of it as much as you can given the uncertain times. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you'll come out of this in a worse financial position if you can avoid that scenario. And these are all, again, things that you should be considering, and when you're building your emergency fund, you should factor into the fact that you will continue to have to make all these recurring payments long after your income is dried up. So put that away and put that in your budget when you're planning the emergency fund. And finally, the fifth lesson, the final takeaway from this situation to avoid being blindsided again in the future, is to reduce your monthly recurring bills. Now, I have gone over this in several of my budgeting videos. I'll link them down below and up above. But guys, it is really important to reduce your overhead. If you are on the path to financial independence, you want to make sure that you are maximizing your income, whether it's one income stream or multiple income streams. And the only way to do that is to reduce your recurring costs. And the way to do that is to evaluate everything that is coming out of your account on a regular basis, whether it's subscription fees for streaming services or, insurance payments that you can, kind of avoid or lower. Whatever recurring costs that are coming out of your bank account every single month, you need to be evaluating and basically itemizing and deciding whether these are essential things that you should be paying for. And if they're not, cut them out right away, because again, you're not really using 5 different streaming services. You don't need subscriptions to 10 different, online shopping sites. These are not things that you need. You can live without these. And if it means that you're going to be able to retire younger or be in a better financial position 5 years from now, make the sacrifice now. If you need it down the road and you want to use something, like if you need a Hulu subscription for a 2-month period, get it for a 2-month period, that's fine. But you shouldn't be paying for it year round if you're only using it for one series over a 30-day period. So look at that. Always look for ways to reduce that overhead, your monthly overhead, so that your basically living expenses are as low as possible. And that way you'll be able to actually meet the savings goals that you have. Your emergency fund will be enough to cover those bills, and you'll just be in a better place, less stress, and get to your financial goals sooner rather than later. All right, guys, well, those are the 5 lessons, the 5 takeaways that you need to be aware of in order to avoid being blindsided by a situation similar to the COVID-19 situation. We are going to obviously be faced with many more situations like this in our lifetimes, especially if you are younger. This is going to be something that is going to pop up again, and you're going to want to make sure that you've learned as much as you can about it, so that when it does occur again, you're not caught off guard. You are not, in a position where you're overly stressed and fearful about what's going to happen in terms of your financial health and your financial stability. So think about it for, long-term planning. Plan that few of these events will happen in your lifetime. If you are 25, 20, 30 years old, more likely than not, you are going to be faced with a couple more events similar to this. Hopefully not more than that, but you are probably going to be faced with these challenges again. So make sure you are prepared for it the best you can be. All right, guys, well, that's all I had for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll try to answer every single one that comes through, and we'll see you next time.
Can you treat coronavirus by injecting disinfectants like bleach or isopropyl alcohol into your body? The short answer is absolutely not. And the long answer? You have got to be kidding me. Bleach and isopropyl alcohol, like many active chemicals, can destroy viruses on surfaces and in the air, but they're also toxic, which means that injecting them into your body or inhaling them is a really, really bad idea. It's a little like setting fire to yourself because you've heard that heat kills germs. So if someone does suggest you start putting toxic chemicals into your body to protect yourself against coronavirus, just say no. And remember, stay safe.